Well, welcome back, everybody. My guest today is Amir Kazmi, the Chief Information and Digital Officer of WestRock, a $20 billion Fortune 200 company. In this role, he's responsible for developing and executing the global information systems, technology, and cybersecurity strategy. In addition, Amir is leading the company's digital transformation focused on operations, as well as customer and commercial digital solutions. And we'll definitely unpack that. There's a lot going on right there. One of the important data points that has helped shape Amir as the business savvy executive he is today is the fact that one third of his career has been spent in P&L roles. So Amir, welcome to the podcast. And I'd love to start right there. So as you reflect back on an amazing career, what were you doing in the early days of the career that set you up to get the call for these P&L roles?
Dan, it's wonderful to be with you. Thanks for having me. I think it starts with some of the opportunities I had at the very beginning of my career. I actually got started in a leadership development program at Lockheed, engineering leadership development program to be precise, and then went through two additional leadership programs, mid-career and a more senior career program that took me to different parts of our nation. I worked in Washington, D.C., both at government sites, Lockheed sites, New York City, California, and worked across different business units, different divisions of Lockheed. I probably either directly reported into every major division at that point in the company, or indirectly supported, programs that were in those divisions. So everything from IT as a P&L, that was a big business unit for Lockheed at one point. We were providing IT solution services, including software development, to various customers, government and non, to space systems company, where we're working on rockets and satellites, predominantly and a lot more, and exploring the deep space, working with customers like NASA, and then also our aeronautics business. I actually didn't directly report into aeronautics, but I ended up supporting aeronautics because I reported to the corporate CTO at one point. And the point is, it's the diversity of assignments early on in my career. In fact, Dan, my first role was writing software code as a software developer for a commercial, client and the customer. And then I moved into business capture assignments, both domestic and international. And so think of, new business pursuits. And one of the things that I learned early on is, helping people envision what's possible when you're trying to build a new capability, and the importance of just envisioning. So modeling, simulation, data science capabilities early on in my tenure. And I would say I'd be remiss if I, didn't touch on, but what motivated me is purpose and clarity of purpose. And we have that at WestRock, which we'll get into. And at Lockheed, it was a science-based, national security focused purpose. But it's those experiences, Dan, and that ultimately led to, R&D, to productization and commercialization, roles that I held in some of the advanced laboratories. And finally, having the privilege of spinning out and running a small startup in Silicon Valley called Kuprion. And that's the 10-year wrap, if you would, before WestRock.
I'll definitely want to double click on WestRock here in a couple of minutes. And I know so many amazing leaders who have come out of Lockheed. It's you see certain companies, certain cultures. You mentioned the ELDP program. There's some magic to that, right? There's a commitment, there's some intentionality, and it works when I see people like you thriving. And speaking of Lockheed, we found one of your former mentors who was thrilled to provide a mystery question for you, Amir. So let's just jump in, and our audience loves these because it gives us a chance to learn more about you from a human level and someone who knows you well. So listen in and tell us who this is, and then have fun with your question.
Amir, you've had a very interesting leadership journey. Can you share with us one or two experiences or things you learned along the way that prepared you for the role that you're in today?
That's Shan Cooper, Dan. Shan is an amazing leader. Talk about the privilege of learning from the best of the best. That's where I would put Shan. And, I often say I'm the product of many leaders taking a bet on me, Dan. And as you said, rightfully, right? So Shan is one of those leaders. I met her at Lockheed and then have known her ever since. She has a really unique way of engaging and inspiring the team. And, we talked about leading with purpose. And I try and model that, and that's a key learning from Shan. Now, to answer your question, I think some of the things that I would reflect back on, it's again, it's the diversity of experiences and a lot of experiences, that I couldn't have connected the dots if I was sitting in those roles and looking forward. But now looking backwards, they're easy to connect. And I think the second thing, it's the fact that being surrounded by great mentors, great leaders, such as Shan, right, and sponsors. And finally, the third thing I think is just realizing that not everything's going to go right. Learning from those experiences in terms of a key takeaway is not everything's going to go right. And it's determining when you need to change course versus when you need to adjust.
A lot of nuggets there, a lot of teachings, and it hits me. I would challenge our audience. Some people made bets on us along the way, and are we doing that? Are we doing that for our next generation? Right, giving them those opportunities, that mentoring, leaning in, accepting when it's messy and when things don't go according to plan. But look at you here. I mean, you're at a Fortune 200, actually Fortune 183, I think, WestRock 20 plus billion. And tell us about the company, the business. It's so fascinating company.
Yeah, Dan, thanks for that. So I'll start with purpose, right? So our purpose as a company is to innovate boldly, package sustainably. And we'll unpack that in the conversation today. So WestRock, we're a global leader in sustainable packaging solutions. We also have a machinery product line that we'll touch on that really helps our customers package their product at high speeds, on an automated basis. We have thousands of these machines deployed around the world. So think of us as an integrated solution provider, and there's over 55,000 teammates around the world in the Americas, North, South, as well as Europe, Asia. And the goal, as I was mentioning, is really to offer end-to-end solutions to help the customers with some of the greatest challenges that they have. Then even during the pandemic, we were considered essential because we provide packaging for all types of products. When you think of end markets, Dan, it's everything from food to healthcare to industrials, electronics, and the list goes on. So that's what the company does. And, we'll double click on the purpose of innovating boldly and packaging sustainably. But I do want to highlight the focus on sustainability. A lot of what we do, the vast majority of what we do actually, Dan, is sustainable packaging. And in the world we live in today, it's an increasingly important topic. The intent and the desire to leave the planet better than we found it. And we have a meaningful set of initiatives across the board in terms of our innovation agenda that is both focused on material science, how do we remove plastics from the products that we produce over time, to scope 2, scope 3 targets that we've laid out publicly. And so it's innovating with that in mind to really solve our customer needs and challenges, and also to offer sustainable packaging solutions because it matters at the end of the day. We also have a recycling side of our business where we will take actually over a dozen recycling facilities around the country. We'll take the package on the back end, and oftentimes we'll put it back into our own network, and that enables that circularity that we talk about from a sustainability perspective. So that's what the company does, man.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you mentioned essential business, makes a lot of sense. FedEx is one of those too, and you made me think of the Fred Smith story, the founder. Back in the late 70s, the story. This is a decade before the internet. He said the data on the package is as important as what's in the package. And I'm just curious, if and how that might resonate with you. How are you thinking about this in your business, and maybe how it's enabling you to enable digital revenue?
Yeah, it's a great example. So anything that can be connected, I believe, will be connected over time, right? Both in terms of the cost of connectivity, it keeps going down. And secondly, it's the ability to provide insights. The example you just gave with the founder of FedEx, Fred Smith. And so the way we look at it today is, there are three key problems we hear from customers often. One is around wanting visibility into where the product is at any given time. So just visibility on where the product is and making that a bit easier. There are many different ways to get at it, but we think we can contribute to that. And second is to raise the sustainability of packaging by providing more insights into reducing waste, but also into condition tracking of the package itself. And third, I would highlight is activating the brand off the package and making it easier for customers to engage with the package and consumers to engage with the package. Now, why does this matter, Dan? Let's unpack this for a moment. 30 off the top of my head, 32, 33%, if I remember correctly, of food in our country, but also globally, is wasted every year. And so if we can make a small dent in that, that's a meaningful contribution, again, from sustainability purposes. Also, if you look at some of the other end markets that I talked about, such as pharmaceuticals or automobile parts, the safety and the efficacy of having authentic product is important. And what is it called? The secondary markets or the black market or just fake products. It's a big problem across many different end markets. Everything from luxury brands that often comes to mind to the healthcare side of things to parts and automobile. So if we can enable the ability for you to have higher confidence, right, that the package is most likely not tampered with, as an example, we think that that can also contribute towards those use cases. And finally, I talked about raising our customers, the privilege of working with many of the largest brands around the world, to raise their connectivity back to the consumer through the package itself. And two examples then that come to mind, Fast Company magazine touched on Domino's and the work we did with Domino's Pizza. This is about a year ago, off memory. And then Greenhouse Brewer magazine touched on this about a month ago. Two different use cases. One is really around sustainability, recyclability of the pizza package. And the second one is really around, providing more productivity to, in this case, horticulture customer of ours that talks about the use case of connected packaging and IoT and RFID inside of their solution. Now, the pizza example, I talked about food waste earlier or recyclability earlier. I don't know about your house, Dan, but I've got a teenager in my house. We consume a lot of pizza in this house. In fact, if I remember correctly, we as Americans consume about 3 billion pizzas a year. And so that gives you a magnitude of just one end market, a key end market and an area where we get to work with fantastic brands such as Domino's and enjoy the pizza.
That's right. Those are incredible stats. And I love the whole notion of helping your customers connect with their customers. And you really helped us understand the different markets, kind of companies that you serve. It's pretty staggering. And I know a big part of the story is innovation. And we've got a mystery questioner here who will maybe kind of help us unpack that. So let's listen into this next question.
What is the best advice you've ever received when it comes to leading innovation?
James Dallas. James is one of a kind, Dan, and I know you know James.
I do know James very well. I can't say his name without saying the great James Dallas.
He's a thought leader. And if you want to learn about leading change effectively, in fact, his book is widely circulated in our company, especially within our technology organization. And I would highly encourage your audience to grab a copy of his book on leading change. And as I said, James has helped our team, right, embedding some of his best practices on change management. And I think the advice I would share, Dan, on James's question is the willingness to be criticized before being recognized or before being celebrated as a team and as an individual. Right. Many organizations, I think, across the different end markets, leaders across the board are trying to get ahead of the curve. Right. That's part of what we do. And sometimes I find that we wait too late or we wait for a while to get everybody ready. And I think if you wait for everyone to be ready, you sometimes will miss the opportunity. So it's finding that balance between starting some of the efforts and initiatives about embedding capabilities, whether it's in your operations or whether it's, for commercial use cases, and then having the appetite and the willingness to kind of test, learn, and scale over a period of time, as opposed to trying to scale it from the day one situation, because there's a lot of learning in the journey. And I'll pause there, but I think that's one of the key things I've learned and advice that I've received from both people like James, Shan, and others when it comes to innovation.
Yeah, no, great insights. Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, Shan. I mean, both now have gone on to big board work, doing other things to impact our profession in many different companies, and good stuff. I love what you just said. Be willing to be criticized before recognized, and that is that goes against some of our DNA, right? So great advice. I'd like to have you talk more about the digital innovation journey because people are talking about it a lot. I think few are actually having success. Maybe we kind of get to some of the tactics, how you maybe even get into how you shifted budget and the spend, maybe how you leverage the startup community, things that you're doing to really drive that innovative culture and the success you're having.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So before I get into that, maybe let's set the context before we get into the question specifically. I think in terms of digital innovation, I often look for, good frameworks that we can take advantage of. We don't need to invent something and we can borrow a best practice. Let's do it. So, we talked about James's book, and there's another person that comes to mind, Peter Weil from MIT CISR. He's a chair of the CISR department. Peter's published some really thought-provoking, important work in this space around how should technology budgets be allocated. And then he's benchmarked companies by industry to give you what the competitive advantage could look like. I won't get through, his entire research, but I think people can look him up and find MIT CISR. But one of my key takeaways from it is the importance of having a objective approach to investing in, customer experiences and really creating an integrated experience for customers over a period of time. We are on that journey. We're not there yet, but that's a framework that's helped us both shift spend on your question, Dan, from run to build. So we measure spend on run to build. We also, again, look at our spend against the MIT CISR framework. And that helps us in allocating spend and driving efficiencies on the back end so you can invest on commercial capabilities, you can invest on operational capabilities. And the three priorities we focus on, over time, to create great customer, but also employee experience, and to unpack those new business models. But the three capabilities we focus on is really around, number one, it's business resiliency. So we have three priorities for the function. Number one is around business resiliency, and think of that in terms of cybersecurity. Think of that in terms of your ability to respond and recover quickly. Secondly, think about scaling the business, right? Through common systems, common data. Because if you get that right, then a lot of capabilities, including a lot of focus on Gen AI and large language models these days, it accelerates that journey. And I think finally, number three is around creating digital experiences for both your operations and your customers. So again, number one, business resiliency. Number two, it's about business scale through common systems, common data. And then number three, it's really around embedding digital customer experience, but also digital operational experience. So we often call it digitization. And so those are the three areas we look at in terms of spend. We also look at it in terms of objectives and key results. So another book that I highly recommend is Measure What Matters. And I think that, that book really unpacks, John Doerr really unpacks, how to set goals, objectives that are tied to business results, that are tied to clear whys and outcome orientation. And I think that practice, again, framework has really helped us to align our goals and objectives to drive operational efficiency in the tech budget and to invest it in capabilities like e-commerce. We've doubled e-commerce revenue for the company in the last few years. If I look at it pre-COVID, where we're at today, we're roughly around $600 million of revenue coming through those channels. And what's more important is not the revenue, is the fact that it's more profitable because it's sticky, it's lower cost to serve. Another metric would be, from a business resiliency perspective, is obviously NIST scores, but it's also cloud compute. So you have resiliency where your data is, you have resiliency in terms of being able to recover. I think the days then of expecting that, you're going to focus on protect and detect only are long, long gone, as we all know. And so part of it is, and I think this is a competitive advantage for companies over time, is your ability to respond and recover effectively on the business resiliency side. So those are some of the thoughts that come to mind, Dan. But again, I'll index with having great frameworks because they help you anchor your investment thesis. And in this case, I'll call out Peter Weil.
Yeah, I love those three lenses and the call for Peter, the book, Measure What Matters, great resources. And you've talked a bunch about the customer, getting close to the customer. I think it just goes back to your P&L way of thinking and so valuable. At the same time, you're helping the company make a shift, right? In terms of kind of business models, product-based to service-based. Talk more about that if you would, Amir.
Yeah, so a couple of things that that I think of in terms of business model, and just building off the last conversation we had, and Peter's framework touches on this as well. By the way, the other person that comes to mind, and every now and then, he has both writing and podcast materials, is John Chambers, the one and only John Chambers from Cisco. And if I remember correctly, John's stated in the past that tied to your question around business models, that 40% of S&P 500 won't exist in the next 10 years, predominantly driven because of business model changes. And so it's a really important topic. And what we're doing is a couple of things. One, we're on that journey. We're not there. We're embedding insights into our products, like we discussed in the prior section here around connected packaging and adaptive packaging solutions. The second thing we're doing is we're also looking at strengthening our customer experience through the e-commerce channels that we discussed. But ultimately, what it is about is it's getting closer to the customer so you can learn some of these new solutions that we're bringing to the market effectively. So I touched on machinery earlier, Dan, but we have this machinery business, which often will help our customers package their product at high speeds, may sit at the end of the fulfillment line. It could be for beverage, it could be for a lot of other end market products, electronics, industrial goods, and so on. And it's a really unique capability that the company has. Why am I bringing it up in the light of business models? So one of the things we've been doing is embedding the ability to have IoT and connectivity on the package within the machine. So if a customer buys one of our machines, we're starting to add capabilities where you can actually embed those insights or that capability for the insights on the package at the customer point. Now, we're also embedding those capabilities within our own production facilities so that we can do it at the point of production of the package itself. So we're looking at it from both ends over time. But I think so that is the integrated view. But I think the second thing is really it's iterating with the customer at a high velocity and a high speed. So one of the things that David, my boss or CEO, he's been very supportive. In fact, he moved the commercial digital business development team, right, specifically for commercial digital activities. It's a small team, senior, experienced leaders who've been in the business for a long time. And you move that team over to our digital team. And I think part of what that's done is it's focused around tightening that linkage that we're talking about here between our commercial colleagues across the company, our sales and marketing colleagues, and allowing our product management team together with our BD team to engage with our customers at a higher clip and create a stronger velocity so we can learn faster, iterate faster to meet some of those customer needs from a product mindset perspective. And again, we're on that journey, and we're not there yet. We're certainly very much committed. We're on that journey. But I think what I'll leave you with is it's a statement I said earlier, which is what can be connected, will be connected. And so embedding those insights and then being able to pull that data so we can offer those insights to customers, I think is the key over the foreseeable future.
That's impressive. Big shout out to David, for that, having that kind of vision and so many folks in your chair today are struggling with getting the C-suite, their boss, their peers around the digital table. And, how do you, take us back a few years. How do you sell the vision? I think we struggle with that in our profession. We're not that good at it, Amir.
So in terms of selling the vision, I think what's important is not necessarily selling the whole vision. And remember, as Bob Johansson and many other well-known thought leaders have talked about, is seeking clarity over certainty, right? And where you have clarity on what the potential end state of, let's say, a new product could look like, It's having a vision around those premises, key market shifts that are happening, for example, right, with IoT and the connectivity and everything that can be connected will be connected. So I think there's a level of clarity there, right? Is there certainty on exactly every single end product that needs that level of capability? As the example we discussed earlier with Internet of Packaging and our connected packaging solutions for every end market, potentially over time, right? Having clear detail defined for every single end market, especially when we started the journey, would be potentially premature. And so I think that's what part of the vision is. And then also, helping to be clear around what value you're trying to create for the business and for the customer, right? Helping to be clear around flexibility that will be allowed in that learning journey to make that product market fit possible. And helping to be clear on the outcome orientation for the stakeholders that are involved. So that's the way I look at it in terms of selling the vision. And it should be one that's inspiring and it's bold, right? Depending on what you're trying to do. Even if it's for things that may seem foundational or rudimentary, I think there's so many changes that have happened in terms of technology trends. And the key is getting some of those trends right? You're not going to get every single trend right, but you've got to encompass some of these key market shifts that are happening and tech trends that are shifting, whether it's going to the cloud, whether it's the adoption of AI capabilities, right? We see these trends every so many years, and it's about encompassing those trends and then creating flexibility and achieving the vision so that you can incorporate them and give your team flexibility, but inspire that journey and achieve those outcomes over time.
So good. We talk every time we talk, Amir, you talk about your team. You are probably the biggest fan of your folks and biggest supporter. And you'd be very upset with me if I didn't bring this up. So that's why I'm doing it. And award-winning team, you yourself just were recognized with the Georgia Orby Award. So congratulations again for that. And I know you deflect all the credit to your team. I was at the CSO 50 Awards a couple months back when John Gift accepted that on behalf of the organization. So talk about your team, the journey they've been on, how they have impacted all the success that you've talked about.
Yeah, the award genuinely is a reflection of the team. It's the team that I have the privilege of directly leading, and it's the team that we get to partner with, right? Because they ultimately are the backbone of really helping us drive the impact on the commercial side, operational side, with our employees. And so I think it's a couple of things, right? One is we talk about building trust and collaboration within the organization and having shared OKRs. We are a team that we spend a meaningful amount of time debating, discussing what are our key OKRs. Not every single objective key result, but the key ones at the functional level that align with their business strategy. And as my staff will, every year we'll spend time before a new fiscal year to really reflect on what did we learn from the past year? Are we being aggressive enough, right? Are we being inspiring the team in terms of setting those clear OKRs? And we'll discuss those OKRs. I think the other thing is that it's also, a couple of key leadership principles around you have to be able to both, meet and exceed goals, but you also have to be able to inspire the team. And that expectation by having team members and leaders from different backgrounds. So if I look at the leadership team, and I think that's partly a recognition of the two awards you just mentioned. We have leaders from all types of backgrounds and different industries and different experiences, leaders that have both been promoted from within the company, but also leaders that have come from everything from, companies that are in CPG spaces to companies that are in industrial spaces to manufacturing to even aerospace. And so I think it's the background of experience. It's the focus around collaboration. It's the focus around really having a team win mindset and then setting clarity around what are the goals and objectives that really matter and not getting into prescribing exactly the details of the how and letting the teams that are in that we as a leadership team have a privilege of leading within the technology digital function giving them flexibility on how they get to those outcomes as they learn through their journey. I think it's all those pieces coming together that help. And I'd be remiss. I mean, it's thanks to this leadership team that I have the privilege of leading in terms of the collaboration and engagement scores. So it's something measurable. We as a company measure engagement scores like many companies, right? And I'm proud we have some of the strongest engagement scores, and this team, it's a direct reflection of this team. And the last thing I'll say, it's also continuous recognition of small wins along the way, right? We often forget those, and we just go fly right by them and we go on to the next thing. And that's something, as we started this during COVID, Dan, and it's turned into a good practice. We'll have our monthly operating reviews with my leadership team, and we'll have a dedicated portion of it to really focus on just teams videoing in or Zoom videoing in colleagues and peers from around the world and recognizing on something that happened recently and just celebrating them together as a leadership team. I think small things like that go a long ways.
Yeah, well, special team, big shout out to them. And I know just great. I think their best work is still ahead. As much as you've all accomplished, the best work is still ahead. I know they're energized, they're charged, and ready to run through that next wall. So one of the things we love to do on the show, as you know, Amir, is I like to unpack those isms, those Amir isms, those expressions that you use. And I've got a few. I'd like to do a lightning round with a few of them. So I want to get a bunch of these in. You talked earlier, never heard this before, but be willing to be criticized before recognized. That's an example of one. But you've got one that's probably goes back to your P&L experience, but it's highlighted in the acronym BLUF, BLUF. So I'm going to call your bluff. Amir, what does that mean?
Yeah, bottom line up front. So it's the essence of what we're discussing, and being really clear about the why it's relevant, the impact, and the credit really for this one goes to, again, it's my days at Lockheed, and I actually think it may originate from the military if I remember correctly. And so that's what it is. It's the bottom line up front. It's the essence of what we're discussing. So if you have a few moments, you're able to clearly distill what is it that we're trying to achieve, or what is it you're trying to update, what decision are you trying to make, or what are you trying to inform, and what's the impact, right? Again, tying to those business results, those goals and objectives we discussed earlier.
Such good teaching right there. I mean, and our presentations, our thinking, our vision, our strategy, our planning, it's just so good. Another one that probably gets to why you're so effective at selling the vision, communicating the vision. And you talk a lot about provide the context before the content.
Yeah, so it's setting the why to a great extent, right? Why are we about to get into this conversation or about to get into this journey? And it's just an enabling, mindset around helping to bring people along. And I think it just level sets everyone on a common context before to potentially the how, the what, the when, and so on.
I love it. I need to be better at that. When you say respond, don't react. I mean, intuitively, I get that, but what's the difference? What's embedded there?
Sometimes it's just pausing and reflecting, right, on what just happened, good, or sometimes not something so good, right? Something that is a learning opportunity. And it goes back to the mindset discussion that we had earlier, Dan, and it's about just thinking with a bit of a growth mindset, series of principles. And that's a key tenet in terms of building a team that can trust each other, that's collaborative, and that responds, right, to things that are anticipated, things that may not be anticipated, instead of reacting to them. But I think it can help in everything from something small not going so well to an interaction that you didn't anticipate, right? And it's just thinking for a moment as opposed to reacting, and ideally responding based on plans that you may already have in place, or what you're, how you're going to think differently based on the feedback you're receiving, and change and again adjust course accordingly.
Right. I think this next and last one really probably gets to some of the foundational reasons why your organization, your team is so impactful, so successful. And you talk about don't confuse efforts with results. Talk about that, Amir.
Yeah. So, in a world where I think people are busy, There's a lot of focus on, sometimes I think we individually get focused on activities. And it goes back to the book that I mentioned, Measure What Matters, around OKRs. I think that's just an example of what exactly is the result that we're trying to achieve. And did we achieve that result or not? Let's be objective about it. And then what can we learn from that journey that we can then strengthen our goals and objectives accordingly as we move forward. And look, it's really important to recognize effort, and I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. And you want to motivate the teams along the journey, and you want to distill those learnings across the organization, ideally quickly, and not learn the same thing multiple times from a growth mindset perspective. And you want to encourage that as opposed to discourage it, because there will be learnings throughout the journey. But I think it's also important to not then mix activity or efforts that may or may not achieve the end results. And it's just important to hold that accountability around result orientation at the same time while you're recognizing effort.
Such good wisdom. We've got one more mystery question, but before we go there, I want to wrap up with that question. You and I are both big believers that this profession has been really good to us, and in turn, we like to give back. We want to help the next generation, and we do the Tech for Good. We have the scholarship to our IT leadership development program, TechLX, and so as you know, on the show, we like to give our guests the ability to gift a seat in that program. We do that to the tune of $150,000 commitment every year. So, do you have somebody in mind, Amir, that you'd like to gift a scholarship in TechLX to?
So first of all, Dan, thanks for doing this. I think that it's a great way of giving back and talk about STEM, right? In terms of the program that you just mentioned, I would like to give this opportunity to Girl Scouts. So I have the privilege of being on the board of our Georgia Girl Scouts chapter here, and they do some great work. We often talk about, you and I were talking about Girl Scout cookies before we started the recording. And, I think that when it comes to STEM and really helping young girls, through the journey, giving them exposure to different things such as sciences, technology programs, I think that this program that you've put in place can really help in that regard. And we'll discuss offline and offer it to one of our colleagues at the Girl Scouts here.
I love it. You've been on the board. You're very active, giving your time, and I know you want to get our future women involved early in this field, get them excited about the opportunities, and just for the audience, Amir has 2 sons. I'm just saying. I need to make that point made, but that's fantastic. We will definitely work with you offline to get them plugged in, but I got to ask the question, Amir. Favorite Girl Scout cookie? I mean, that's an important question of the day right here.
It's this look, we like the mint thins, we like the Samoas. We've got probably boxes of both of them upstairs. But those would be the ones that come to mind. And I'd be remiss, regarding the sons, yes, I have 2 sons, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for especially 2 women in my life. My mother, who always encouraged us to tinker with things when we were younger, even when we had very humble beginnings as a first generation immigrant family. To my wife, who's been my best friend and partner throughout my journey, and wouldn't be here without her. So, yeah, I think, and we remind our sons of that as well. But
awesome, great job, Dad. Great teaching. And on that note, let's wrap it up here. We do have a third mystery questioner, and listen in and see if you recognize this person.
Amir, if you were heading into college right now, what major would you choose? And why would you choose that major?
That is Abraham. We just talked about my sons. That's our older one. He's actually getting ready for college. So incredibly proud of our son, Abraham. We talk about purpose-driven mindset. We're working. He's on that journey from being involved with nonprofits to his love for volleyball, and now he's deciding colleges. So that question is very timely, and it's a discussion we're having around the dinner table often. He's a few months away from applying and then deciding where he goes next summer, next fall. What I would say on that question is it's a balance about aligning your passion, right, to contributing to the world, Personally, we talked about STEM, including arts. I think it offers a great balance. I personally was lucky to go to a liberal arts college. Yeah, I don't know if I've shared that with you, but I think that played a big role in terms of the way I think. And in hindsight, studying philosophy, studying arts, in addition to computer science. So my major was computer science, and I did a minor in political science / international affairs. But I think it's important to understand the value of versatility, right? Balancing the theoretical and the practical skills, and especially in this world of where AI capabilities are becoming more mainstream in our daily personal lives, the interdisciplinary opportunities from the major, right? And we all know this, but the major doesn't define your entire career. It's a starting point. And ultimately, it's the skills we develop, such as communications, critical thinking, adaptability, that are key to, in addition to the subject itself. And I think finally, what I would say to Abraham is, and people that are kids that are thinking about majors, is just stay open to change. Interests and goals can evolve, and that's okay. Because a lot of what we discussed on the podcast even today, it's about the continuous lifelong learning journey. And this is the beginning.
Yeah, so good. Thank you, Abraham, and bright future. We've talked about him often, and can't wait to see what's next for him, where he lands next year, and what comes out of that. But I mean, this has been a blast. The time flew by. I just can't believe how fast the time went. And the good news is for the folks, we're gonna continue chatting, and we're gonna publish a blog next week on CIDO.com. So I'd like to double click on something you started to talk about earlier around business resiliency. And I want to unpack your perspectives around how you personally build resilience, how you build it in your team, your company, your culture, even in your security posture, building resiliency there. So I think we've got a lot of fun things to talk about. But Amir, thanks so much. You've got a lot going on. Really appreciate you and hear about your journey. And thanks for make this happen today.
Dan, thank you so much for having us, and really enjoyed the conversation.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. And thank you again, Amir Kazmi, Chief Information and Digital Officer for WestRock Corporation.
You've been listening to Tech Whisperers, inside the playbook of the best digital leaders, a Woolette and Associates podcast. Keep connected with us by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you like what you've heard, please rate the show, as this helps us connect the world's best digital leaders with those who aspire to learn, grow, and thrive in this amazing profession. Thanks for listening. Until next time.